So the first thing I would just say is, look, the topic today is how to execute effectively in the new normal. We call it that because we're just like for the last 3 months, and with lockdown is no exception. I mean, with reopening is no exception. We're living in a different world every week, and a lot of people have been quoting Admiral James Stockdale, quoted by Jim Collins, who popularized this quote, who said that you must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be.
Wow.
Said that when he was spending 8 years being, tortured, beaten, and never knowing whether he would ever get out of the quote unquote Hanoi Hilton in Vietnam, Viet Cong prison camp, that he said that the people who were the optimists, who just always thought, oh, it'll be okay, it's going to go back to normal, we're going to get out by Christmas, that they were the ones who didn't make it and didn't survive and died, because they just broke down and gave up hope eventually after not being truthful with themselves about the brutal facts of the current reality. So we have to deal with the reality. And what the one reality is that the only certainty we have now is uncertainty. No one knows what is going to happen. Anyone who tells you that they know what is going to happen, what the new normal, it's going to look like this, and it's going to be like that, and this market's going to be good, and this market's going to be bad, that they're lying to themselves or fooling themselves. New York City just entered phase 1 last week. Long Island, New York just entered phase 2 last week. Different parts of the country are getting into different stages of reopening, and everything is changing all the time. No one knows whether the pivot that they made is going to work out or it's going to fall flat. So the only thing we know is uncertainty. The question is, what do we know? What is certain? It is certain that if you are loosey-goosey in your approach to cash, as Ms. Doubtfire might say, to operations, or you don't have people that you can rely on 100% in your organization, then you are going to not going to go well for you. To run a tight operation, whether before, after, now, BC, as Michael Lowry said, before Corona or now, if you want to succeed, and you pick an operating system for your business. Operating system meaning something that your business can use as a framework and a system to make sure you get done whatever it is that you want to get done in your business and you need to get done in your business. You need to pick an operating system and stick with it. The one I've used in companies I've helped build and with my clients is EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, it's called, which is a simple set of tools for getting everything you want out of your business. That's what they say about it. So I'll give a high-level overview of that, of EOS today. And I'm also going to talk about how those EOS tools can and should be adapted in a black swan event like what we're going through now. And, for example, what I'm going to say about these kind of adaptations is that, let's say if you review your cash flow normally once a month to make sure that you're staying cash flow positive and you're not going to run out, and you need to do any emergency cuts. If you normally do that once a month, maybe now with all the uncertainty and things changing and all the time, maybe you need to do that once a week. If you had quarterly goals and that's what you're focused on and executing hopefully effectively on, which I'll talk about how to, ways to do that. Maybe now it needs to be monthly goals, not quarterly goals. Right. You've got a weekly accounting meeting to make sure you're on track, or to look at your data, how are your measurables doing? Maybe before that was a weekly, maybe now it needs to be daily, because everything changes so fast and you don't want to get caught in the lurch or not be able to make payroll. Are
you moving your slides, or are you just giving us an overview?
This is an overview. I didn't move my slides.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No technical issues on that side. It's more of like an introduction.
Yeah.
I'll get to the slides in a second.
Thank you.
With the agenda, but the last thing I would say by way of introduction is for solopreneurs. You'll hear me talking about a lot of this in terms of like leadership teams and your people and stuff like that, which is primarily 80% of the companies using this model, EOS, are larger organizations, 10 to 250 people. But the truth is, I'm a solopreneur and a half. I have an assistant, but besides that, and I use EOS in my business. So it's definitely great tools for giving myself accountability and discipline towards my goals. And so we can adapt these tools, and I'll talk, at various points at the appropriate parts, how we can adapt some of these tools for solopreneurs if that's your business situation.
Right.
And with that, so I just want to go over a 4-part agenda for today, which is I'm going to talk about us, about me and EOS. I'll talk about what the tools are of EOS and give you a brief overview of those and show you the EOS model. I'll explain the EOS process that you could use if you want to implement these tools, this business operating system in your own business of EOS. Whether you're self-implementing, I have one set of tools that you can utilize, or you can utilize someone like myself as an EOS implementer to help you from the outside or help your client from the outside if this is something that will give value to one of your clients or one of your friends. And you could use an EOS implementer like Mitch York as another person in the Business Impact Group, who obviously Jim Fermi is sponsoring and putting together and hosting this webinar today. And there's another member of his group, Mitch York, which is another great person, another great resource to reach out to as another EOS implementer in Long Island. So with that, we'll talk about the process, and then I'll hopefully have some time for Q&A. Again, Jim will give me a heads up if we're getting any questions in the chat, but I definitely encourage you guys to put those in if there's things that apply to you that we're not covering, or any questions, follow-ups that you might want. And depending on how many of those are coming in, we'll live shorter or longer for Q&A at the end. So with that, we'll get started. And okay,
Interesting.
with that, we'll get started. Okay, so EOS started with a guy named Gino Wickman in Detroit, who took over a small business at age 21, saw that it was in need of a turnaround, spent the next 3 years turning it around, and became very active, actually one of the founding members of Entrepreneurial Organization, another, kind of a peer advisory group well, it's based internationally, as he became one of the founding members of EO Detroit. And through the 7 years of running his company, through his activity in EO, and then selling the company and helping with the transition for 3 years after that, he worked with a ton of entrepreneurs and found that he really had a penchant and a passion for helping them do the business. So he conglomerated together like all the bests of like Stephen Covey and Scaling Up and Jim Collins and all these other great books and resources about business. And, a lot of it was talking about startups or talking about very large businesses. And so he really kind of culled it down to the simplest possible version for entrepreneurial businesses, post-startup, 10 to 250 people typically. And he put together EOS, based on these resources. There's nothing new there. It's eternal concepts and principles that have been around for 1,000 years and, will be around for 1,000 more. And EOS is now being implemented with, I think it's being used currently by over 8,500 companies throughout the world, with over 350 EOS implementers like myself, helping to implement them. And even more than that, who are self-implementing, that we just don't know about them. But that's, the ones we know about. So that's the EOS. Oh, okay. So that's that. And lastly is my background. A couple of nice pictures of me in there. But my background is that I was a corporate restructuring and bankruptcy attorney for 5 years at the firm of Kramer Levin of Tallis & Frankel in New York City. After which I joined a healthcare startup called Freedom Care, which is like in a type of home care space, very tech-driven, very mission-driven, and built up most of its operations until we became the largest and fastest growing of our type of agency in the entire state of New York after less than 3 years, and probably and the largest. And after that, we were doing EOS. We were using EOS as our operating system at Freedom Care from almost the very beginning, before we were even 10 people. And we knew we were going to scale big, and we didn't want things to fall apart, which is why we chose to do that. So I did EOS not just as an EOS implementer for other companies, but I actually did it client side with another EOS implementer for 3 years. I've experienced on both sides of the table. I've built up a business. I know, I'm familiar with the issues that you're having at 3 or 4 people, at 10 people, 50 people, 100 people, 130 people, 20,000 square feet, multiple office moves, lobbying. I've dealt with, not everything. I haven't dealt with everything, but I've dealt with a lot. and so that's my background. I help companies now as an EOS implementer, helping them implement EOS tools, try to give value through venues like this, and also help companies as an outsourced COO or as an EOS terminology, a fractional integrator, which I have a couple of clients for whom I do that as well. So with that, I think that is my background, and we'll get onto the next slide, which is the EOS tools, right? The next piece of the agenda. So what I would say about this is that these are based on the assumption and the discovery that everybody in business is dealing with 134 issues all the time. Stuff flying around, always stuff going on. But what we find is that really if you boil those down, there are really 6 key components of any business, no matter what industry, no matter what size. There's really 6 key components. And to the extent you can get strong, and I measure strong on a scale of 0 to 100% strong on those 6 components, to the extent you can get really not 100%, that's pie in the sky, but 80% strong or better on each of these 6 key components of the business, then you're going to find that most of those 134 issues that you're wrestling with are going to fall away because they're actually symptoms or manifestations of weakness in one of these 6 key components of the business, rather than like 134 separate freestanding issues or problems or stuff that you got to deal with. So that is the thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what are these 6 key components of your business, and I'm going to talk about the main tools, or at least a brief overview of some of the main tools that you use when implementing EOS in your business that will get you strong in each of those 6 key components of the business, so you could achieve what you want and have more fun and more profit and more growth than what you have when you're just running everything on an ad hoc basis and just everybody doing everything without without an operating system, essentially. So what I would start with is, and why do we call it an operating system? Again, it comes from this comparison to the idea of a computer, where a computer has an operating system that operates the entire computer. And then there's individual programs, Outlook, Excel, whatever they happen to be. That's the service that you deliver to your clients, the products that you deliver to your clients, finance, marketing, sales. These are the computers. That's the Excel and the Word and the Outlook. And what EOS does, or whatever operating system you choose will do, is it will make all those things actually work, and where you could do so effectively. So what are these 6 components? So the first one that we start with is at the top of the model that you see in front of you is the vision component. That essentially means getting everybody in your organization from the top to the quote unquote bottom all aligned on where you want this organization to go and who you are, how you want to get there, so that you're not simply operating on just day-to-day checklists. Everybody's just doing their busy work for that day, but people actually feel like they're working towards something. It actually means something, part of something bigger. And being on the same page with the vision helps with that. It also helps avoid the reality that exists in so many businesses where if there are different members of the leadership team, or if there's 2 partners or multiple partners, that everybody is not aligned on where you want this to go. One person's thinking, in 10 years, I want to be able to sell the business. The other one's, I want to keep this and pass it on to my kids can run the business. One is like, I'm happy at a certain level of growth. The other one's like, no, I want to grow forever. So if you're not aligned on where you want to be, then everyone's going to be working at cross purposes to each other, and you're not going to be successful. It's going to be filled with never-ending frustration. It's critical for everybody to be on the same page with their vision for the business at all levels. Again, even the quote unquote bottom levels, people can be working towards something bigger. The way that we help people ensure that they are working towards a cohesive vision all on the same page is with this tool called the Vision Traction Organizer that you see in front of you. And Jim is going to share in the chat a copy of the Vision Traction Organizer. This is a tool that all of you can use. In addition, I'm going to email out to everyone who registered, even if they weren't able to make it on and they're just planning to listen to the recording afterwards. I'll also share the this tool, because this is something, whether you work with me as an EOS implementer or do it on your own, whatever you happen to do, this is going to be a useful tool that immediately can add value for you by using this. So I'm just going to go over it briefly, what is involved in this. And the items that you have filled in each section are examples from EOS's own, or from EOS Worldwide's own answers to these questions. So that's just an example, but in reality, the version that I'm going to share with you afterwards is blank, so you'll be able to put in your own stuff. So the first of the 8 questions in the VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer, is what are your core values? Those are something that already exists in your core, that if you imagine yourself, who's your best person in your company, other than yourself, obviously? Who's the best person in your company? And if you ask yourself, okay, if I could clone 100 of that person with their qualities, that I could completely take over the world. And then ask yourself, what are the qualities about that person that makes me think they're so amazing, that they're a rock star, they're an A player, whatever term, whatever consulting terminology you want to use for what you call an A player in your business, because it's different for every business. And then when you say, what is it about them that makes me want to clone 100 of them, that I could take over the world? Probably those things that you would identify, those list of characteristics, those are your core values. Doesn't matter, this is not a marketing tool. It doesn't matter if it sounds bad or it sounds good on your marketing materials in your website. You can never put this on your website, never put this in your marketing materials. It's for you to know internally, for you to use as a filter. We'll talk about this when we get to the people component in a minute, but it's for you to use as a filter about what kind of people fit with the culture of your organization and what people don't. If your business, the way you work and what you value is people that just operate in beast mode all the time, working 16 hours a day, and that's what you value, if beast mode is your core value, but yet you put on your core values for your career page and your marketing, you put a family, family friendly, or work-life balance, you put as a core value, and you're lying to yourself and you're lying to your people just because it sounds good. That's not, you could maybe, put whatever you want on your marketing page for your core values, but this is something that's actually defines who you are at the core and who's going to fit like a glove in your organizations for internal purposes. The second question to identifying your vision is, what's your core focus? That's your sweet spot, where you are most effective. They say the sweet spot of a bat is that one spot on the bat where the ball can go further than if you hit the ball with any other part of the bat. So what's a sweet spot of your business? Where do you enjoy the most? What are you best at? And anything else? I know, and nobody's doubting, that you could do a lot of things. You could do, you can do, if needed, a lot more than maybe what your core focus is. But to the extent you can not try to be all things to all people, not try to be a jack of all trades, but focus on what you're really best at, then you're going to find that your marketing and sales resources, whether that's you or you have a team, is going to be much more focused on places where it's going to be more successful. And you're going to also enjoy and be able to scale something that you really enjoy doing and you're best at, and not something that you're just okay at or good at. And I give the example, and some of you have heard this example before, as I know somebody running EOS in his law firm, and they actually had 50% of their revenue from litigation services and 50% from transactional services. They were in the franchising space. Actually introduced, I don't know if Albert is on now, but I introduced Albert to him. But anyway, so what they found was that they really didn't like litigation. They didn't want to do it. They could do it, but they weren't great at it. They didn't love it. So they made a hugely scary, brave move, and they cut out litigation, the source of 50% of their revenue, from their business. And within 1 year after that, they actually got to 150% the number of clients they had before they dropped litigation, and I think it was around 125% of the revenue. So they actually had more revenue than they did before they gave up 50% of their source of revenue. Wow. Because they focused on their core focus. And it's a scary thing, and we always want to say yes to everything. I see Jeff shaking his head. There's a certain tendency, or there's a belief, and it is true on a certain level, especially when you're a startup, of just say yes to everything. You don't know how to do it, just say yes. You'll figure it out afterwards. You make the sale, you'll do it. And there is a place for that, but when we're talking about scaling and getting past that startup phase into something that's scalable, it's going to require more focus. And maybe we could hash it out if you want to put something in the questions, if you have a particular point, anybody out there. But then the questions, and maybe we could hash it out at the end. So that's a core focus. The next thing is your 10-year target. Where do you want to be in 10 years? It doesn't have to be 10 years. It could be 7 years, 5 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. But what's your long-term goal? Your BHAG, as Jim Collins calls it, your big, hairy, audacious goal that is going to drive you and excite your people, that you're all working towards something bigger. Like, Nike, like, they were very much motivated by competition, obviously with the sports connection. I think their 10-year target, or whatever they called it, was crush Adidas. That was the bigger guy at the time. So the whatever it is, like whatever that big goal is that you want to do, something concrete besides just a monetary number, that's going to really light a fire under you and your people. The next thing is your 3-year picture. So that's your, where do you want to get?
There's a question here about how do you say no? Like, shiny object syndrome for entrepreneurs or decision makers, like people you speak to.
Let's talk about that at the end, because I think that is sort of going to be answered by some of the things that we're going to.
Okay.
But obviously a great question, and easier said than done.
Yeah.
No question. So, especially for visionaries and visionary entrepreneurs. Okay. So so as a 10-year target, so get everybody on page of the 10-year target, 3-year picture. Where do you need to be 3 years from now? What is your revenue? What is your profit? What are your measurables? Like how many widgets are you making? How many, how many clients do you have? Whatever it is that your key measurables are. What is that 3 years from now? And I see Jeff left, so I guess we can't discuss that with him, but he could see it. He could watch us discussing it in the video afterwards. So the 3-year profit, and paint a picture here. We see we have 5 to 15 bullets you see there in the 3-year picture section of the page. That's painting a picture that has an emotional resonance with you. Like, what's it going to look like? What's our office going to look like? How many people are we going to have? What are our processes? What's it, just paint a picture. What's it going to look like? Where am I going on vacation that year? I don't know. Like, what's it going to look like when I achieve those goals after 3 years? Because that's, again, going to the extent everybody in your organization can have a clear picture in mind about what it's going to look like when you get to some place that's much greater than where you are now, it's going to light a fire under people, and it's going to be that's going to be the team that can see that in their mind's eye, who can actually get you there. And the last piece here is the marketing strategy. And obviously, Andy is the biggest expert about marketing, but whether you're using a marketing professional or not, this is a simple entrepreneurial, like, quick and dirty approach to your marketing strategy. That's what we're going to cover. You need a specialist, talk to Andy Randazzo, look up hitstate.com, I believe is the website. Look up that for marketing help. But to do it, like, quick and dirty entrepreneurial level, something everybody can do, is answering 4 questions. And this is critical. I've done a lot of mentoring recently, and I find that the tool I go to when I'm talking to people that I'm mentoring, the tool that I end up just listening to them and their issues, the tool that I go to more than anything else is that core focus that I talked about before, getting very clear on what you do, and marketing strategy. It's just like, I found that it's the 2 things that come up the most with people that I've been mentoring in small businesses, solopreneurships. And the target market means identifying what is the geographic, demographic, and psychographic attributes of your ideal client, meaning that sweet spot where, obviously you have to know what your core focus is, but then for that core focus, who are those people? What is their psychographic? What's bothering them? What's their frustration? What size companies are there? Where are they geographically? What industry are they in? Or maybe there's 2 target markets. You might have, referral sources. There's one place you're marketing to, and your actual clients. And is it B2B? Is it B2C? But just getting very clear. And if it's consumers or it's businesses of what size and what industry, consumers of what age, what gender, what geographic area. Do they have children, not have children? Getting clear on who exactly your target market is, because that's going to be the filter through which you test anything that you are thinking of doing in business. So you are thinking of marketing in such a, with a video, or, obviously, again, this at a higher level, this goes to Andy, but even just on your own, are you thinking of doing a video? Are you thinking of doing direct mail, a website, social media, paid Google ads? Like, okay, is that where those people are? If your target market is, 80 plus, then I don't know, whatever, some of that social media may not be the, like promoted Twitter posts may not be the best thing for your goal if that's not where your target market is. So being very clear about what your target market is and using it as a filter. So I think it was the MGM Grand Casino found out that they were trying to appeal to Asian gamblers in Las Vegas, and they did not come. Everyone else came, but those people did not. It was part of their target market, and they didn't show up at this casino. And after a bunch of research, they figured out that it was because they put, I think it was a giant lion head at the entrance of the casino that you had to walk through the mouth of the lion to get in. And that was considered by people of that culture to be bad luck or negative or something.
Oh, wow.
So they just didn't feel comfortable going into the casino. So they had to renovate the whole entrance. And then they were able to bring that target market in because they didn't use target market as a filter for all of their business decisions. Is this where they are? Am I serving them? Is this relevant to my core focus, etc.? Identify your three uniques. What are the three things that make you different from everybody else? Clearly identify in 1, 2, 3 words. What are those three uniques? Now, why is this powerful? This is the content of your messaging now. Right? It's a filter for target market, right? But now we're talking about the content. What are you saying to that target market? Through your copy, your social media, your direct mail, whatever it is that you're saying, for your sales pitches and your verbally, what are you saying to them? So you need to be hitting in every message in sales, account management for current clients so they stay with you, marketing. How are you hitting your three uniques? That's the, one of those things maybe is shared by most people in your competitive market. Two of those things together in combination, maybe only a handful. All three together in combination, there's literally nobody but you who has that unique combination for that. And so you want to highlight that. Talk about, there's nobody else out there. I'm the only one who does this and this and this, all three. We have the example here with the example of the Vision Traction Healthy with EOS, which I could go into, but that's what EOS emphasizes is theirs, but you have to know what yours is, and then ensure that you have a process that your salespeople or whoever's doing sales, that your marketing materials, that this is being hit on in every piece of marketing and every sales pitch, everything, all of your messaging, whatever that is to your clients, current or future, that you are hitting on that message. It's good to have a proven process. That's number 3 in the marketing strategy, which means a graphical depiction of what your customer journey is from the first moment that they that they contact you until they're a long-time satisfied client or customer. So that's your proven process. There's a graphical description of that. It adds confidence and shows people that, hey, I've thought this out. I'm not just playing ad hoc. I'm just figuring out what to do with every client and every customer, but this is an established process. I know what works. You don't even have to say all of that. Just seeing the document will send that seeing this image will show that message. And you'll even see here in the presentation, I have as an EOS implementer, I have the EOS process, just an example of this, the graphical description of what your customer journey looks like working with me, which I obviously describe when I'm meeting with clients in more detail. And so that is the getting in here. So the next stage, the second page of this VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer, gets into getting clear on what's your 1-year plan. Where do you want to be 1 year from now? What's your revenue going to be then? What's your profit going to be then? And then what are your 3 to 7 goals for the year? Not 27, because I'm sure you want to have 27 goals. But what are the 3 to 7 goals for the year that you want to have, and that you're going to be focused on achieving? That if I'm going to be on track for my 3-year target and my 10-year target, that what do I have to have done 1 year from now? And then from there, you make that even more granular and even more immediate for what you're going to focus on today by establishing rocks. Rocks are your quarterly goals, quarterly priorities. They're called rocks based on an analogy by Stephen Covey in one of his books, but so in EOS, we call it rocks. So what are your quarterly goals? It's going to be, again, the 3 to 7 company goals that I need to focus on right now. Every day, I need to be setting aside time for this in order to get where I want to get to on my 1-year plan. I need to be focused on achieving these rocks and doing them every quarter. Because if I don't get these things done, if I don't roll out this new system or start this, make a new website, or whatever the big things are that you have to get done, then you're not going to be able to be where you want to be a year from now. If I don't get this done by the end of the quarter, whatever that milestone is in between the 1-year plan goals. So that's that. The last thing is the issues list that, I'll get more and explain the issues list later, but this is like the big issues and opportunities and ideas and problems that you need to address in the business, that you get them out of your head and onto paper by putting them on this issues list. They don't have to be addressed today, but they have to be somewhere where you know you will address them. That's the purpose of the issues list and the vision component. So just to be clear what those issues and opportunities are that we're going to be working on. Okay, so as always, I am spending more time at the beginning than the rest of it. So the people component is the next key component of the business. If you look at the top left-hand corner of the model, you'll see the people component. That means two things: having the right people that match your core values and work the way that work best with you, and two, that they're in the right seats, meaning that they get, want, and have the capacity to effectively execute on whatever their substantive job is on a regular basis. So there's two typical issues that people have with people issues. One is you have the right people in the wrong seat. And what that looks like is you have great people, they fit your culture like a glove, you get along well. Maybe they were there at the beginning, they helped you get founded, they helped you get going. Maybe it's your brother, it's your wife, your cousin, your sister, your husband, whatever it is, but you work well together, it's going great, that's awesome. But it's a wrong seat. Then maybe it was the right seat when you first started, maybe it was never the right seat. Everybody's in a different situation, but they're in the wrong seat. They're not able to effectively execute. If you're in a for-profit business, people are going to have to create all processes to work around that person's weakness. You have to do that. It lowers morale. You're in a for-profit business. I would just urge you to make a change despite the greatness of that person. Work through, figure out what to do, how to do that with the least damage possible to their feelings or your feelings or the organization. But you need to make it, but you really need to make a change if that's the situation. The other main type of people issue is wrong person, right seat. What that looks like is somebody that's really productive, they're really effective at their job, but they do not fit with the culture of the organization. Maybe they're backbiting and gossiping or complaining and negative and poisoning the environment, creating toxicity with your people or with you, discouraging you. They're just not the right people. And that's really tough to let go because it could be your top sales gal or top sales guy who is this person, and they're just really productive, really effective. So it's really hard to get rid of them. And sometimes it might take months of preparing before you can make a move like that and say okay, maybe I have to hire 2 salespeople to replace this 1 salesperson and get them trained before then I can make the move. So it's not that it has to happen instantly, but you need to take a decisive action on enabling yourself, because it's going to bite you in the butt and it's going to be very bad for you long term. If you keep somebody around long term, poisoning the environment, who's the wrong person, even if they're in the right seat. So getting strong in the people component, having all those people aligned on where you want to go. So how are you going to know how well you're doing towards actually getting there? So that's the top right-hand corner of the model, which is the data component. You have to be reviewing your data on a regular basis. So what's data? It's objective facts and figures. Primarily for the purpose of EOS, it's talking about activity-based data. So how many sales calls, how many pitches, how many emails are being sent out, how many deals closed, how many widgets were produced, how many service calls were made and delivered, what was the average customer service rating of those things last week, whatever it is. For finance, what's our I don't know, collection rate. That's, try to avoid the finance stuff, generally speaking, because a lot of it is very backward looking and it's going to tell you what you did wrong 3 months ago. But if I'm talking about activity-based data, that if I know my website needs to bring in 50 leads if I want to close 5, and I need to close 5 if I want to get on my revenue goal for the end of the year, whatever it is. But you work backwards from where you want to get to. What do your numbers need to be in order to get there? How many calls, leads, whatever it is that you have to be doing in order to feel that you're going to be on track for your goals. Set those as your minimums. So for data, we use this company scorecard. It's this model here, identifying who is accountable for each measurable, identifying what the measurable is, and then what's your goal for each measurable. What's the minimum number or maximum number if it's a bad thing? Let's say errors or something. You could be counting errors in production. So what is the minimum or maximum that number, dollar, percentage, raw number has to be in order for you to know that you're on track. So, and we'll talk about the meeting discipline later, but when your number is off track, you make it an issue. And we'll talk about, again, issue solving and issue resolution in a minute. But that is the data components. Now, to the extent that you have, again, the right people in the right seats, all aligned on where you want to go, all looking at objective data on a regular basis every single week about whether or not you're on track for those goals, you're going to find constantly issues and problems and opportunities are going to be coming to mind constantly. And where a lot of great companies fail is they don't have a set way and a set method. They just kind of like when things get too intolerable, they sweep stuff under the rug and then they only address issues when it gets too intolerable. But they have no established discipline for setting up and knocking out all the issues that are and will arise all the time. They actually set up in the process an issue resolution process. So for issue resolution, what we teach the clients is something called, first of all, issues list. That means that everybody at every level of the organization, from the lowest individual contributor to the CEO or whatever you call it, the president, realizes that they have a discipline that they can put this on an issues list. Maybe it's a departmental issues list, maybe it's the leadership team issues list, or maybe you're a solopreneur and, I'll give this example here. I would do my level 10, I would do my weekly meetings and review my data, my rocks and my measurables and my to-dos. I'd measure with my coach. I just set up with my coach and I have a meeting with her. You could do this. You could find a friend, find another company, another solopreneur that you could do your level 10 meeting, do your meetings together every week. We'll get to meetings in a minute, but the point is that you have an issues list where anything that comes up, an issue, a problem, an idea, an opportunity, it has someplace to go. And people are going to realize that, I can get out of my head. I don't have to complain about it. Like I could put it on this issues list and it will get addressed in the proper time. So that's the issues list. And the next thing is the actual issue solving, which is the IDS, which stands for Identify, Discuss, Solve. This is the issue solving discipline so identify means actually getting clear on what the underlying root issue is and not just making assumptions. A lot of times we might think like, okay, sales are down. Okay, run to the sales department and run to the sales team and discipline them or give them an extra incentive or more training. But what if the reason why your sales are down is because you didn't call Andy Randazzo? You had bad marketing and you're getting bad unqualified leads, and that's why sales are down, not because of something you did in marketing and not because of something with sales. So you have to first identify with any issue that comes up, what's the underlying reason and the root cause of the issue, and you discuss it. Each person's saying their point of view once, more than once. We say it's politicking. Once you see that the points are getting repetitive, we move to the solve phase, which means that you just look at what are the 1, 2, 3 actions that can be taken within the next 7 days to get us on the road towards resolving whatever the underlying issue is. And if it has to be something that can be done within 7 days, because that enables us to create accountability around, okay, did you take whatever the action is towards this item? Now, let's say it's something that takes 3 weeks. That happens to be the solution to whatever the underlying problem is. So you take whatever piece of that can be done within a week. Like, let's say it's hold a meeting with Bob. That's the solution about X topic, right? So if that's a solution to the issue, then maybe it's schedule a meeting with Bob, not hold meeting with Bob, because we can't necessarily guarantee that in this meeting here that we'll be able to actually hold a meeting within the next 7 days. Just a simple example, but that's setting something that we can have accountability the following week about whether that to do was to done in the following week. So that's the issues component, is getting really good at this discipline of knocking out issues at the root for the greater good of the organization and solving them. And when you're great at solving issues, there's literally nothing that you can't do. The next piece is the process components. We have 15 minutes left, so we'll try to at least end the presentation 5 minutes early. Maybe we could talk about the question relating to core focus versus saying no versus having opportunities. Yep. And wanting to do everything. So that's the issues. Right. So we'll get to that hopefully in 10 minutes, along with any other questions that come up. The next thing is the process component in the bottom right corner of the model. Process means that you have 6 to 10 core processes in your organization. You have a sales process, how you bring in a marketing process, how you bring in interest. You have a sales process, how you capitalize on that interest. You have 1, 2, 3 operational processes where you deliver your product or your service to your clients or customers. You have an accounting process, finance process, maybe an HR process, how you onboard and manage and offboard employees, things like that. So whatever your 6 to 10 core processes are, you need to have those documented. And we take an entrepreneurial approach to documenting core processes, which is we take an entrepreneurial approach to documenting core processes, which is you take an 80-20 approach. You document the 20% of the steps that get you 80% of the results in that core process, whatever it is. Not turning this into a 700-page SOP manual that covers every single little detail and is just going to sit on the shelf or in the electronic file gathering dust. But something that's actually a living, breathing document that's used and reflects what your actual processes are, because people can be clear on what's the best and right way to do everything. Because a lot of times when you're in a startup or a smaller organization, you could have a sales team where everybody does it a different way. Everybody has a different message. Everybody has a different sales process. Or operationally, all your service delivery people are doing it differently, and everyone's ad hoc. And you're clarifying what's the right way, what's the best way, what's the best practice of how I'm going to get the results that people expect from this organization. To the extent that you can get a process that's documented for all of your core processes, and it's followed by all, which is a whole nother effort after it's documented. But to the extent you get to a point eventually, and if people can't follow it, then it's a people issue and you got to get rid of that person. But once you get past that initial pain of getting to processes that are documented and followed by all, then that's what gives you a scalable business. That's what gives you more profit. That's what gives you more fun and less worry about things, because you're always worrying about things getting done right. It's annoying. It's painful. It makes you hate the business that you created and not love it. So having core processes that are documented, followed by all, is the key to having a fun, profitable, scalable business. And I would say the people and processes are really the two biggest issues in the entrepreneurial companies that people have. Those are the two biggest pain points, is working on those areas. Now I find. And the last thing is traction. So you could be strong in everything else, but again, if you don't have a way to actually execute all these great plans, and you got a great way to solve issues and a great process to follow, but if you don't have a way of effectively managing and creating accountability around your execution on a consistent basis towards your quarterly goals, your 1-year goals, all the stuff that you got to do, then you're not going to be successful. So the way we create traction is number one by rocks, which you talked about earlier. So this is, again, going to that shiny object syndrome earlier also we talked about. We all get on the same page. We take a day off on the business, not in the business, figuring out, okay, what do we need to get done by the end of this quarter to be on track to where we need to get to the end of the year, which is to be on track to where we need to get at the end of 3 years, right? And then we create the rocks. So for this quarter, we're not going to focus on the 27 good ideas and great ideas that we might have, but just what are the 3 to 7 most important things that are necessary in order for us to get where we need to go. So those are our rocks. And so that we're focused on now. And I'll talk about that again in the meetings aspect, which is right below that in the model, which is that you're having a weekly meeting, which we call a level 10 meeting. Because most of the time you find that you're rating your meetings at if you ask people in your organization, people hate meetings. How effective are they? Your internal meetings, not sales meetings, that they're effective at 3, 4 out of 10 in effectiveness. So the goal is to have a level 10 meeting, something that starts on time, ends on time, happens at the same time every week, and that you're effectively solving issues at the meeting. So what does that look like? And again, the meeting components, I'm just going to show you here the level 10 meeting agenda. Wow. So I'm going to go through the agenda briefly, and this is going to give you a clear idea of how you're creating accountability, how you get traction towards your goals. So you segue into the meeting, talk about some good news, personal, professional, then you review the scorecard, which each person, I think if there's one person in the leadership team, it's one person saying all of this, but you're asking yourself, what is the, and again, maybe you're doing this on a daily huddle rather than a weekly basis, if that's what you need to do to manage the rapid change at a time like now that's going on. So the first thing you do is everybody states what is the measurable, and what was it this past week, whatever that number was, and was it on track or off track? No explanations, no alibis, no excuses, just was it on track or off track? If it's off track, we drop it down to the issues list for that day. And that's a scoreboard. So that creates accountability around the measurables, which again are designed, and those measurables are set, the goals are set, and the measurables are set of what do we need to be doing on a weekly basis to actually be on track to getting wherever our goals are at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year. The next thing is your ROC review. It's for those 3 to 7 priorities for this quarter, and for whoever's accountable for them, they're reporting, are we on track or off track to getting that done by the end of the quarter? And if something is off track, we immediately drop it to the issues list so we can say, okay, what can we do? What can other people do? What needs to be done? What issues need to be solved to get us back on track? So we're actually going to achieve and fulfill 80% or more of our ROCs by the end of the quarter. So those are getting dropped down to the issues list. Customer employee headlines. Was there some big boo-boo that was made with a client last week, or with somebody having a baby? Is somebody getting married? Is somebody getting divorced? Is somebody got sick? What's going on with your employees or with your customers that might be highlighting other issues that need to get done? Maybe the issue is, our big client just lost his mom. Okay, great. Let's put that on the issues list. And then maybe it's a 1-minute discussion, and so-and-so marketing guy or the CEO is going to just send some flowers or an email to Bob to wish him condolences. But whatever it is, it just enables you to smoke out issues. Or if there's a problem with a client, there's a big mistake. Okay, what led to that? What can we be doing to prevent that from happening in the future? But it enables you to smoke out issues. The next thing is the to-do list, which is where you review the to-dos from the solutions from last week's issues. And was it just no excuses? Was it done or not done? The goal is to have 90% or more of the to-dos done, and that's creating accountability for each other for these things, for actually executing on the solution to previous issues. Let me conclude the meeting, and just in the last 3 minutes that we have left. So that's going to get you, and again, to the extent you're executing on that, on those 6 key components of the business, you have the right people all aligned in where you want to go. You're reviewing data on a regular basis, spotting issues and problems and opportunities as they come up, and then having a weekly meeting where you create accountability around previous issue resolution, around whether you're actually on track for your ROCs, whether you're on track for your data, any big things going on. You're smoking out issues all the time, addressing them, prioritize in the meeting your top 3 issues that need to get addressed. That's why it's no alibis, no excuses, no discussions, because if you just save it, just put down the issue, and then we spend the first 30 seconds just prioritizing our top 3. Because if you just discuss everything and give alibis and explanations, it just takes over the whole meeting, and you have no time to actually be strategic and intentional about what issues you're prioritizing that need to get addressed by the leadership team. And to the extent that you're able to do all of that, then you're gonna get where you want to go. You're gonna be happier, more profitable, more fun, and satisfied from the business, and you're gonna start loving it again, even if you started hating it because you felt like you're running in a hamster wheel now. And we need to adapt these tools to deal with rapid change. Again, maybe the quarterly ROCs become monthly, maybe the weekly meetings become daily, maybe the monthly cash review becomes weekly, just for some examples. But those are the kind of adaptations that need to be made. And so that is that. And then again, if you're self-implementing, I would just tell you that there's resources available out there if you want to implement all of this yourself. I'm happy to have a call to talk about it for sure, just regardless. But or again, same thing applies to any of your clients, but or your friends who might be able to benefit from using the system. But you could utilize the Traction Library. First thing is you should read Traction by Gino Wickman. That lays it all out. Or get it on Audible. Read any of these books in the EOS library. Go to my website, wolfsedgeconsulting.com. That's wolfsedgeconsulting.com. Find out more about it there as well. Go to EOS Worldwide. That's EOS's official website. I don't have much time to go into it, so I'll just say briefly now that when I'm working with clients, again, whether it's your clients or your friends or yourselves, if this makes sense for your business, is I first have a 90-minute meeting where I meet with your entire leadership team, not just you, not just the CEO, not just the owner, the entire leadership team. Creates a certain commitment and a certain alignment that everybody's on the same page about what this is going to look like, what's going to be involved. And everyone, when you actually, if you do decide to start, everyone's aligned on what that's going to involve and what it's going to entail, and people are more committed and on the same page with it. Focus day, then I work with leadership teams on a full day session basis with the entire leadership team, off-site, away from your business, that I spend with you, teach you the tools on a full day, which we call focus day. Then you'll see on the screen, there's a vision building day 1, vision building day 2. Those 3 days, the focus building day and the 2 vision building days, are all within the first quarter, 30 days apart each. And then once you get going, then we meet together for a quarterly after that to see how we did, get back on the same page again, set rocks for the next quarter, and then get back into execution mode again, living in this 90-day world, we call it, where you're come up for air, figure out how you did, where do you want to go next, and then execution, boom, for the next 90 days. So then I meet with the leadership team once every 90 days after that, and then for a 2-day annual planning session to go deeper, and that is essentially what it looks like. And that's the basics. Now, okay, I know we have 4 minutes left for questions. So, Jim, what should we start with?
Well, I think you've shared this statistic with us before. I just want to make sure you got it out. If people start working with you and start going through their program, what's the number one thing that you see happens to their business?
What happens is, I guess, it's just a feeling of, I don't want to sound like exaggerating, but like a feeling of elation. Like, because stuff that you struggled with and you didn't have an outside person kind of being able to be a buffer between you and whoever else you have, and you just didn't know how to get out of it. So this is just like an out of the box thing. You have to, you're like figuring out stuff that millions of businesses have dealt with before you, but you're dealing with it for the first time. So you don't know. So this is just kind of like, it's not like I'm a genius or even Gino Wickman. It's just taking the collective wisdom of everybody who's built a business from the post startup to the scaling up phase, and saying like, what works? What are the tools that work? And it's just an out of the box set of tools that actually gets you where you want to get. It's been used by others. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So it's just an elation of like, gosh, we've been dealing with this for 3 years now. We finally got traction on it. We're finally solving this. One client that our first quarterly, their revenue went up 25% from 18 to 24 million in their first quarter, just from like simple, like it wasn't even huge things that they did. They were just finally able to execute on it, create accountability around it, not just kind of be ad hoc, everybody doing everything, but like just they were able to get focus. And just by using this process and getting focus, they're just so happy. Talked to another client yesterday, just like, just by having someone from the outside. That's a huge thing, is having someone from the outside, like come in, the fish can't see water. So just having somebody from the outside is critical in being able to get you things that you just can't get on your own. No magic, no genius on my part. It's just being an outsider and a trained facilitator is huge, which is a lot of the value people get from you, Jim, obviously, from Business Impact Group.
But what I love about what you said very early in the beginning is, it's not just some process that you picked up along the way. It's so cool that you were actually on the other side of this as a customer.
I'm not a coach or consultant who just learned how to teach it.
Right. You've
done it in my company, in the company I built.
It's really cool. And again, I want to make sure that people that are on the call and if they see a copy of this, you've also found a way to scale this down, so to speak, even for solopreneurs, and you can come up with a package or a solution.
Yeah, that's true. I have I put together a virtual package for smaller businesses in 2 to 4 hour Zoom sessions, over we did a little bit more spread out instead of full session days. I did put that together. So the truth is, Jim, I'll include my flyer about that program for smaller businesses implementing EOS. I'll include that in the email that I send out to the registrants, along with the VTO that you guys can all use, even on your own. But
I was gonna ask the question that you guys just addressed, which is there a client that's what's like your minimum size will you work with solopreneurs? And you just answered that question, so thank you.
I will, and it's more, it's still an investment, and I think that investment is important for, obviously, you're not going to do something that you're not paying for. I think everyone's found that in their own businesses.
Well, with any kind of business process change, if your client doesn't actually do the work, it doesn't matter how inexpensive or expensive your service is. It's like homework, right?
True. Yeah. If you don't do the homework, you're not going to learn it.
Yeah.
So of course, that's definitely true. But having the sessions, having the quarterlies is also a way of people holding themselves accountable to the EOS implementer, like myself. So when we get together at the end of the quarter, I'm going to tell you, okay, each leader individually, what was your ROC completion rate? What was your quarterly goal completion rate for the quarter? And for the leadership team also, as a team, what was your company rock completion rate? And and what do we learn from the mistakes that we made?
Is ROC an acronym?
No, rock is based on a Stephen Covey analogy. It's like, how do you fit rocks, pebbles, sand, and water into a jar? So you have to put your rocks in first. The big things that you want to get done, you have to make time for them first. So that's where the terminology, I didn't go into it because we had such little time.
Yeah,
but,
that's right.
But that's where the terminology comes from.
Ben, I got to jump, but thank you very much for the presentation. I listened. I was working while I was listening. It was very informative. You and I should definitely do another one-to-one.
Yeah, let's do it.
So thank you for your insight, though.
Thanks, David.
Guys. Everybody, have a great day.
Thank you.
Guys,
Michael, yeah, Jerry.
I have another call to be on. Ben, I'm talking to you next week. Jim, I know we're connected on LinkedIn, but I'm part of now Pro CFO Partners.
Yes.
Yeah, works with Nelson.
And Kathleen Reynolds. They keep mentioning your group and your name, so I'm sure we'll be in contact.
That's great, Jerry. I'm so glad you joined us today, too.
Great. Thank you. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, so Ben, that was great.
Thank you. Should we discuss that thing with Jeff at the end? I don't know if I'll see the recording, but or if anybody else has a similar question about core focus and saying yes and shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of, I as an entrepreneur, business owner myself, that's you were answering it along the way. But we often get, bombarded with different things. We start one process, get exposed to another one, start that process, and then before you realize that you're on this up and down treadmill of trying different things that are trying to get you to the point of.
So I would just make a couple of quick observations about that. Just from what I'm seeing is that if you're following the rocks discipline and holding yourself accountable to whether they're on track or off track.
Yep.
And if you've clarified, there goes Michael. So for anybody else on, if you've clarified, or who's watching the recording, if you've clarified your core focus and what your rocks are, so then there's a simple question you need to ask yourself with any good idea, which is that if I say yes to this idea, what am I saying no to? Right. Which rock am I not going to complete this quarter if I do this? Because I'm just not going to have the bandwidth. And visionary leaders always underestimate the amount of time something's going to take. Like, oh, we could do this. It's not going to take any time at all. It's going to be so easy. And they're constantly underestimating it. But your people that have to actually execute on it, and the more detail-oriented people, are going to have a better idea. And you need to be listening to the people who you have, who are more on the ground, about what could actually be done. How long is this? You may think, oh, is this going to take an hour? Well, no, I know it's going to take 13 hours. It's and just say, what am I going to? And just asking yourself or asking the right people, what am I not going to be able to do? Am I, and with your core focus, if I'm clear on that, this is my core focus. I have this great other line of business that I want to go into, or other product that I want to develop or explore or research. Okay, well, with my bandwidth or my people's bandwidth taken away to work on that, how is my core focus or my supposed core focus going to suffer? How am I not going to be? Am I going to be less responsive to my clients? Am I going to have a lower quality product? Am I going to take longer to do things? Am I going to not follow up on my leads as quickly? Whatever. How is my core focus work going to suffer? I mean, if the answer is it's not going to suffer, and I could get 100% of my rocks, or at least 90, 80, 90% of my rocks done, even if I do this, then great. Go for it. But you can add it to that issues list in the VTO. Your long-term issues list. That's where that goes. You put it on the long-term issues list, because a lot of times the leader is afraid. They're like, if I don't take action on this now, if people don't start acting and researching it now, it's going to get lost into the ether. It's going to get forgotten. So that's why the long-term issues list is there. It's just like, okay, this is a good idea, but we can't do it now because the current priorities and the current rocks and our core business is going to suffer. But it's not going to get lost. It's not going to get forgotten about. I'm going to put it on that long-term issues list. And then our quarterly meeting with our EOS implementer, he's going to be sure, and I'm going to be sure that we take it seriously. We address, is this the quarter to work on this? Is this something for this next coming quarter? Or maybe it should stay on the long-term issues list and maybe for the Q3, Q4, Q1. But it stays on there until we decide it's not a good idea and it doesn't belong there anymore. But that's just a little bit I would say on.
That was good.
On objects or core focus and wanting to say yes to every opportunity. And again, I think especially as a startup, you got to do that.
Yeah.
You know, they talked about IBM, you know, who was it? Microsoft. I forgot about people, Atari. I think it was Atari on did you see Guy Raz? Did you ever listen to How I Built This with Guy Raz on the NPR podcast? So there was, I think it was the interview with the founder of Atari. And he just talked about how, like, they said yes to some big order that they had zero capacity to
I remember
fill.
this now. I remember this now. Yeah.
And they just said yes. Like, was it their core I mean, it was their core focus. Like, that's the industry they wanted to get into. I mean, that's what they wanted to do, was build video game consoles. But they had no ability to do it, and they said yes anyway. So there's definitely a place for that, especially in startup phase. In startup phase, a lot of this stuff doesn't even apply, because you need to be so agile, so everybody doing everything, so flexible, that this structure is very often not right in the startup phase. The stuff I'm talking about, that when you start to get 4, 10, 15, 20 people, things just fall apart. It's too complicated. You have to create lanes and processes and systems, and you have and accountability. And if you don't have that, you're just gonna find yourself in the hamster wheel forever, and living with eternal frustration. And you're gonna hate your job, and you're gonna hate the business you created, and it's not gonna be fun.
Well, Ben, this was great. I know we're going to share this recording with people. I'm glad you put on this last screen your contact information. Please reach out to Ben. I'm pretty sure what we just went through is pretty similar to that first 90-minute session that we can get to more detail.
Yeah, slightly more expanded there, but yeah.
But I definitely appreciate the hour plus time you spent with us. And I'm very grateful for the time that we had together with you. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for organizing this and everything you did.
Good job. Thank you, Ben.
All the best. Bye.
Bye-bye.